Good afternoon, everybody. It's our first Saturday show. This is episode number 34 of the Sports Consiglieres podcast. Along with me always is my partner, Jerry. Our next guest recently wrote a book about one of the Giants. We featured some of the Giants in the past. It features Emlen Tunnell, who I first found out about at the Coast Guard. My son in the Coast Guard Academy. And a shout out to the Coast Guard Academy wearing the sweatshirt. He was a trailblazer. He was a Giant player, and he was also a coach and first African American inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Dave Lyons. Dave, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Jim. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm very happy to be sharing an update on the legacy of Emlen Tunnell.
Okay, so I mean, we were doing some research for the show. We kind of, Jerry and I kind of embraced this 100th players with the Giants, and Emlen Tunnell was up there. And then I found that you wrote the book. What was the inspiration for you writing the book about Emlen Tunnell?
Well, I grew up in the same small town as Emlen Tunnell. My dad was a friend of his, and all the kids in Garrett Hill, we grew up hearing the stories and the legends of Emlen Tunnell. What a great person he was. The accomplishments he did on the field was amazing in itself, but as a person, as a whole, he was just one of the friendliest people you could ever meet. And over the years, we kept wondering when there's going to be a biography written on him. And over the decades, it never happened. And eventually my father nudged me and says, I think you're the one that should write his biography since you know a decent amount about it. And with his little inspiration there, it's like I had to give it some thought because he died in 1975. And a lot of people who he knew weren't around. So I had to do my work and make a real time commitment, which I didn't realize how long that might be. Had I known, I might not have continued it. I persevered because actually it's been about 12 years since I've been working on it.
Oh, wow.
So I'm real excited to be able to get it out by this spring.
This spring? Okay.
Yeah.
So Jerry, I'm going to pass it along to you because
Dave, welcome to the program. This is Jerry. Again, I'm going to thank you for writing this book. Like Jimmy mentioned, we had several ex-Giants on. The theme was the 100-year anniversary. And then we also had on Bob Robustelli. He wrote a book about Andy Robustelli. And it's great to have you on. We're happy that you decided to write this book. I mean, Emlen Tunnell, coincidentally, he passed away the year I was born. But I am a Giants history buff as well. One of the I don't know if you're familiar with Giants Access Blue. It's
Yes.
on MSG. They did a nice piece on him, talking about his military service in the Coast Guard. It's a great story. If in writing this book, what would you say surprised you the most, considering that you were from the same neighborhood, you knew a lot about him, your dad was friends with him. So in doing your research and preparing to write this book, what is something new that you did learn?
The overall impact, what he did with his entire career playing football, starting with the Giants as a player. He was a man of many firsts. One of the most amazing things is that there's a thread about Emlen Tunnell in his life that started in his childhood. He didn't believe like opportunities would just come to you. He understood early on that you had to create your opportunities. As an example, it's like with the Giants, they didn't come drafting him. They didn't call him, but he believed, hey, I could probably play the pros. He had played 2 seasons at the University of Iowa and his sophomore and junior year. And during that summer, he decided, hey, I'm going to ask the Giants directly. And he didn't even have enough funds to take a train ride or a bus ride. And he organized a ride with a truck driver to get up to go to the Giants' office in New York City, which was about 2 hours away from the suburbs of Philadelphia where he grew up, in the great town of Garrett Hill, where he grew up. And he asked Tim Meagher directly. I mean, that takes a lot of guts. I mean, no one else really thought of that problem-solving skills. Like, hey, even though the opportunity doesn't seem to be there, he created his opportunity. And that thread resonates throughout his entire life. And I thought that, and the overall impact that he did throughout his entire career as a player, then as a scout, and then as the first assistant coach in the NFL, being an African-American. And in addition to like all those incredible accomplishments he did in the NFL, it's when you put it all together about how many people he helped recruit into the NFL with all the scouting that he started doing, even while he's playing with the Giants. And Lombardi, who came to the Giants in '54 season, knew Emlen Tunnell for about 5 years and saw what a winner, what a capable player he was, what a player that he played with passion, and that he played to win. And Lombardi knew that he had to really bring around the Green Bay Packers, who were in the bottom of the heap, and no one really wanted to go to Green Bay in the NFL at that time. But Lombardi saw what he could bring besides just his athletic ability. It's his winning attitude and his charismatic personality. So it's hard for me to like just pinpoint exactly, but I can go on, and I go in detail in the book, of course. But in general, that's overall impact. It's like he was a really a person that could connect with almost anybody, and he did actually.
Yeah, I just watched Bill Parcells' Hall of Fame speech, and I guess he mentioned Emlen Tunnell in his Hall of Fame speech. I guess John Meagher, I guess, has his portrait outside of his office, and he's, I guess the thing was, losers assembles in little groups and complain about coaches and players in other little groups. Winners assemble as a team, so they're together. So I thought that was pretty poignant for somebody, Bill Parcells, who we consider probably one of the a staple for the Giants, and also John Meagher, I guess, had a relationship with Emlen Tunnell. Being the ball boy, and just the character of man he was for the Giants and in his personal life. So,
yeah, in fact, like John Meagher mentioned, one story was when he was visiting one of the training camps one summer with his college friends, and they're at the dorms just having a nice conversation. And then Emlen just sits down, and the conversation continues, but he just would listen, then to say a couple things, but he'd just be at ease, make everyone just feel at ease. You wouldn't realize what an accomplished person he was. He'd just make you feel so comfortable. And he'd be genuinely interested in anybody that he talked to.
Yeah, I think Frank Gifford, and one of those things Jerry alluded to, Frank Gifford said that, a lot of you're talking post-World War II era, you're talking about tough guys, the guys that saw combat and everything else. And he said Frank Gifford was like, Emlen Tunnell was the one kind of welcomed, and he talking about it. Frank Gifford's a big star, big name, and he kind of welcomed to the Giants, where you're dealing with a lot of these big time players that played, during a time that fought in World War II, fought in a big war.
Yeah, they were battle-hardened players who went through World War II, and yes, and Gifford said he was the first person he befriended on the team was Emlen Tunnell, and yeah, so they saw hell on earth, they experienced World War II because a lot of the players from the quarterback Connerly and then they all served, and Emlen really understood about team. Like, he might have been an accomplished great player, but he understood you had to have a very unified team to really succeed, to make it to a championship game. And he was really good at that.
And again, David, I think what I alluded to earlier, the piece that the Giants have out or they put out periodically, a lot of times when they put out something about a player from yesteryear, it's always 80 to 90% about what they did on the field, and then the other 10 or 15% off the field. I think it was what made an impression on me after watching the piece they have out is that it was really 50-50. And I think that's the ultimate compliment to Emlen Tunnell is that, the things that he did off the field, the people that he touched, what he did as a coach, a scout, his military service, community service, and then what he did on the field. I mean, when he retired, and this is when I asked you this is something that blew me away doing the research, was when he retired, he was the career holder in interceptions, right, with almost 80. And now we're talking about a time. This is not nowadays where they were throwing the ball all too often. I mean, it just goes to show you that he was really on the field and off the field. He was definitely, a man ahead of his time. The athleticism, back then, as corners, didn't have the athleticism. He was probably the first guy to return punts and kicks that was dangerous. I mean, that's an incredible stat to retire when he did with almost 80 career interceptions.
Well, I can, there's a couple great points you're making there. It's like what he had to overcome. First, I can talk about the Coast Guard, okay? When he went to the University of Toledo, he got severely injured to the point where they thought he'd never play sports again. He broke his neck in 3 parts of the vertebrae. And but only months later, he's playing for the Toledo Rockets at Madison Square Garden on the basketball team. It was made of all freshmen as well. And a month after succeeding, where they made it to the NIT playoffs, but they didn't get all the way. He goes back. He was turned down by the military services, how much he wanted to serve. And I respect that your son's now with the U.S. Coast Guard, Jim. The 2 military service, of course, they denied his to enlist him because of his broken neck. But that didn't stop him. He went back, and finally the U.S. Coast Guard took him in. It's like he was a problem solver. He took obstacles as challenges, and he rose to the occasion. He just made it seem like it was just automatic, and it's just amazing. As you're saying about his athletic skills, for his safety, he was only about 6 foot, 200 pounds, yet he had the hits where he would tackle was like a middle linebacker, the force. But his hands, if he touched the ball, he would catch it, and he could maneuver his entire body to make those incredible over the head catches. And then his maneuverability to be elusive on the punt returns and the kick returns, like, wow. And he was a game changer because of that. Because when you make an interception, the whole momentum of a game could just be changed right there for the whole team. It's like he bring them back. He had that spirit. He had that possibility of, like, at any time, the Giants fans would be looking at number 45 and say, man, is he going to make a big play here? Is he going to make a big play? And when Steve Owen back there in the 40s, it was mostly a defensive strategy more than offense. It was the rugged running game, and they didn't get much time. And also, Emlen was kind of forced to make the best of defense because he didn't have that opportunity to be a quarterback or the running back. Yet he made that safety position as entertaining as a running back or quarterback. What did he do in 1952? 924 yards without playing any offense. He got 924 yards with playing defense and special teams, more than any player on the offensive team on the Giants. But how about in the entire league? Dan Towler of the Los Angeles Rams had 924. He had 30 less yards. So Tunnell had a total of 924. So more than Dan Towler, the leading rusher for the league that season. And he did it again, like in 53, he did it about 800 and some yards. It's just amazing. It just was never, he revolutionized the safety position.
I guess he was in the backfield with Tom Landry too. So it just
Yes.
Tom Landry keeps on popping up. But I know for his service, I guess he served from 43 to 46. I guess he saved two people. I guess his his ship, the Entenmann, was hit with a torpedo, and I guess he saved somebody was trying to keep the ship afloat. He saved the gentleman there, and I guess there was another instance where he saved the gentleman there. And even I guess his history with the Coast Guard, I know that they just really kind of find out on his research on it, and I think that they just put out the 45th Sentinel class, and then they nicknamed the ship offense on defense.
Right.
So that's what the so 45 obviously because he wore number 45.
Right. Yeah, it's just beautiful that the Coast Guard has been really doing their best to bring out that legacy of Tunnell, what he accomplished in the Coast Guard as an enlisted person. And it's wonderful to see there in Philadelphia when that happened, was going with my dad and some of his old buddies of friends of Emlen, and to see that and to see how he's being honored like that. I mean, that was beautiful. Really nice. I mean, I got to speak with Fred Schaefer a bunch of times. He lived in Panama, and even in his mid-90s, his memory was incredible. Him and Emlen were actually friends, and it was amazing how Emlen, when he, after the torpedo, recognized that that person who was on a ball of fire was Fred Schaefer, because he had Fred Schaefer's another hero who stayed in the engine room after the torpedo, make sure everything was turned off while fire's going ablaze everywhere. And there Emlen on top of the ship sees the person in need, and in his dire moment, there was Emlen picking him up and then batting out the entire flames and burning himself in the process. But he just thought that anyone else would do that. It's just a thing that you do. And then the other story was in 46 was in Newfoundland, was the icy waters that Alfred Givens jumps into the water, kind of not thinking, I guess, 32-degree waters after a football. And he's all cramped up, and Emlen wasn't a big swimmer, but he just was a person in need. There's Emlen. He's jumping in after him, saving his life. And it's remarkable. It's like that for years and decades, it was kind of unknown a bit about what he had done until it was recovered by Lieutenant McKinstry, did his own research and figured out, connected some dots and everything, and how delightful it was that other members of the Coast Guard thought of the ideas of naming all the Coast Guard cutters of this latest class for the enlisted men who serve our country so well and so valiantly. Yeah.
No, it's a great listen. It's a man, really a Renaissance man. It's an unbelievable story. I mean, and there's a reason. I mean, most people are like, oh, and I think this is why I'm really looking forward to the book. He, like Jimmy mentioned, he was voted sixth, the sixth greatest giant of all time. But there's so much more, to him, than being a football player. But I think it's remarkable. That the Giants really celebrated his career by putting out that piece. You're doing the book. My question to you is, did you receive any support from the Giant organization when you started this project?
Everybody who ever seemed to know Emlen loved Emlen. And yes, this book could not have happened unless the incredible cooperation of so many people, from the Coast Guard, from the Coast Guard historians and all the people involved in that, from the Giants organization, Pat Hanlon, John Marr, Chris Marr, John Marr says that Emlen was the most beloved Giant ever, really. It's like Emlen and Tim Marr, the patriarch of the Giants, had an incredibly close relationship. Really started from like day one. I got to know the sister very well. And over a couple of years of having different conversations, she told me, like, the day when he went there for the tryout and the interview and everything, Emlen called her and called home, talked to his mom and his sister, and he was just so delighted that he was going to be given that opportunity. And he told many stories about how close Tim Marr was. And on Monday afternoons, when the Giants didn't have practice, Emlen would go to the Giants office and really just go in to be able to have a chat with Tim Marr. And he had a pretty good sense of humor. And, as he was progressing and becoming an incredible dynamo as a defensive phenom with his interceptions, everything he could do, Tim Marr would make little bets that if he got a interception the next week, he get him a suit, and things like that. And it was just real funny. And then an amazing kind of story there that then Wellington, Marr, really appreciated Tunnell's football intelligence and was a great recruiter. And Wellington was smart enough to get Emlen out there recruiting all these people from the colleges that were not in the this thing is called the Street and Smith's football guide. This is what the scouts used back then.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was it.
So Emlen wasn't on the radar. First of all, he still had another year of eligibility with Iowa, and he had to be released in order to get for the Giants. But he's also an Afro-American, and he had to create an opportunity where they weren't really just drafting big time back then at all. So he was the first, just a year away from Jackie Robinson getting in to the play in the Major League Baseball we all know about. But he was a great recruiter. He was, and then he became a great players coach. And so that's why his impact overall with the NFL, it's just amazing in regard to an entire career and how many people he actually affected in such a positive way. And all the people I talked to over the years, they just told me these beautiful, great stories and how well loved he was.
And how did he get the opportunity to coach? Because I know Vince Lombardi, he was, when he went to Fordham, I guess he was considered different because he was Italian. And I think that kind of really resonated with him, throughout his playing years and coaching years. But how did Emlen Tunnell get an opportunity to coach? He ended up playing for, Lombardi at Green Bay. But how did that kind of transcend, and how did that turn into a coaching opportunity?
Yeah, so after 11 seasons with the Giants, even Tom Landry became his coach after a couple of years. And that last season, it turns out that he wasn't becoming a starter in the beginning of the season. Landry wanted to really recruit a younger player to replace Tunnell at that point. But Lombardi saw that, he still had athleticism. He could still be a great player, but he's basically brought him in as a player coach with Lombardi at Green Bay. And that really is how that really started. He mentored Willie Wood and Herb Adderley. And Willie Wood's another great example of perseverance, because he was a great player at USC as a quarterback, but he was not going to be drafted. He didn't get drafted because of his size, yet he, like Emlen, wrote letters to different coaches, the whole bit. And Lombardi saw that he had that grit and determination that Emlen had. And Emlen had just that incredible ability to be an incredible good mentor and how to coach. And he just had this laid back way of giving his advice. He showed by example. And what he did with Willie Wood, Herb Adderley, look, future Hall of Famers. I mean, he knew how to coach well. He knew how to get people inspired and to think well, because he was so good at the game. He knew what he was talking about. He had that street cred.
And David, along the Green Bay Packer theme, if you will, Lombardi knew talent when he saw it. He brought Emlen to the Packers with him. How did you get, or what was the relationship, and how did it come about you getting Jerry Kramer to write the forward?
Oh, well, once again, Emlen just had this effect on people where he really felt a nice bond. So Jerry Kramer was a close friend of Emlen. He would love to do the the forward. He was just so glad. And Jerry Kramer, we know, just can tell great stories. He's a great storyteller. And I felt so honored to for his time to just listen to Jerry tell the stories, and had a lot of laughs along the way. He did it because of the love of a great man, Emlen Tunnell, and he wants people to know about what a great life he did and what he did in the NFL. But besides that, all the good times he had off the field. You know, Jerry Kramer tells stories about how he went with some other teammates one night with Emlen, and he goes, every night was just going to be, it's a surprise. You just all knew one thing: you're going to have a fun time. He talks about how he was at some club in I think it was San Francisco, and Ella Fitzgerald is playing at the performance. They're a little bit late, and so Jerry says him and a couple of players, they start walking in the back. Emlen is going right on the stage. And he's waving Jerry and come on up, and they get bar stools. Whatever. They get chairs and everything by the piano. And Emlen had that kind of connection with a lot of celebrities. He just had that ability. People really liked hanging out with him, and so Jerry had. I didn't have to ask him. He wanted to really help people know more about Emlen.
And what is his family? I know with the Giants piece, there was highlighted. I guess some of his nephews. Did he? What was his family? Did he ever have any? Did he ever get married? Have any kids? Or what was his family life? We talked so much going on. But what kind of family life?
Yeah. Well, Emlen considered himself a swinger, and that means he just loved the social life, loving having a good time. And back then, he was a little unusual. He was a bachelor for a long time, and not until he retired from Green Bay and as a player in '62 did he get married, and that was kind of late in life back then. He was 35, and he never had any kids, because then even after he got married, he was away from home more than ever, because some years he did over 100,000 miles, driving around, going to all the different colleges and being a scout, being a game scout, player scout, the whole bit. So he never had any kids. But he did have a niece, Catherine. He was really close to his sister, Vivian. And she was like a business manager for him, because Emlen liked to splurge. And so he had a little financial difficulties at times, and she would help out as well as others.
So, David, you're talking about, like we talked about Lombardi. I mean, I think it's fantastic. A guy like Jerry Kramer, I mean, the way he tells stories is legendary. But just the fact that you got him to do the forward, I mean, it just makes the story all that better. So are we correct? The book will be out in February?
No,
April. Okay.
April.
Okay. And Herb Adderley, I put in as the afterword.
Okay.
Sadly, he passed a couple years ago, and he wrote all his thoughts in an email to me in 2015, and he wanted to be in a special place. So there's Herb Adderley's in the afterword, giving all his thoughts and memories in the book as well. He was well loved,
And for yourself, I found you via internet and being an author. You're an author by trade. I mean, is this something? It took 12 years to write a book. Are you an author by trade, or is this something like a hobby of yours, or like a?
It's a passion project. It's my first book.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah. Well, good luck to it. And then you have your Villanova sweatshirt. I gotta ask, are you an alum or?
No, I came out to California. I did go the same. I'm a real happy Radnor graduate. Radnor High. My dad went there. Emlen and all my buddies that went to Radnor. We were very blessed to go to such a great school. And yes, I'm a Villanova fan. Always will be.
Now I have to ask you. Growing up in the Philadelphia area, are you not an Eagles fan? Are you?
Yeah.
Let's go tomorrow. Let's go.
Oh man.
An
Yeah,
Eagles fan writing a book about Emlen
This
Tunnell.
episode's over. That's it. This episode.
I might have to write a book now about Bill Burr.
Listen, the way the season went with Saquon Barkley, I think we can't have a move more fitting into the season. So
yeah, I don't want us to. I feel sad, for the Giants with that, but Barkley, Philadelphia seems to be the place. Wow.
And David, I have to ask you one thing, because growing up, I always thought one of the greatest nicknames in Giant history was Carl Spider Lockhart, and Emlen Tunnell gave Carl the nickname Spider. But I don't think many people know, and I didn't know this, Emlen was referred to as the Gremlin.
Yes.
And how did that nickname come about?
Okay, sure. So, it was after World War II when Emlen enrolled at the University of Iowa, 1946 for that season. So, once again, a lot of these battle-hardened veterans were players. They're in college, and so Gremlin was a word used for the pilots in the war that saw this phantom something happening outside the airplanes, and they thought, hey, it's a gremlin. But only took a couple weeks into the season, and there's Emlen Tunnell. He was also a fantastic offensive player. He played halfback, and he had the triple threat skills. He could throw the ball, when he did those option passes. He's a great runner. He could also receive. He had great hands. And in fact, in one game against Indiana, he 3 touchdown receptions. And then on defense, we know about his interception skills and what he could do. So it was more organic. The Hawkeye fans started saying the Gremlin, and it stuck. Then the sports writers wrote it within a couple of weeks. He was referred to as the Gremlin.
Awesome.
And then I found out amazing, though, he was actually a quarterback for Iowa. I know one of the streaming services did something about the black quarterback this year, but I don't think he was mentioned at all.
But, a lot of people mistake that because it's a halfback. He wasn't the quarterback, but he got thrown the ball. But yeah, they're passing, and that's it gets a little bit confused. But yeah, he had a great arm. He has a great quarterback skills, man. It's like, wow.
Well, I'll listen, David. Thanks for the time. Good luck with the book. I mean, I think it's really amazing. We found it, and if you're ever around New Jersey, if you're ever on the book tour, we'd love to meet up with you, and hopefully not celebrate a Philly Super Bowl win. Just I'll leave you with this question, and I always end it with Jerry. But what's your prediction with the season going? I mean, obviously, emotionally and passionately, you're going to want the Eagles. But who would you like to see them square off with in the Super Bowl?
I just want them to make it to the Super Bowl. I don't care who. I want them to win.
And one more thing, Jerry on our last episode said Saquon Barkley, if he wins a Super Bowl, could be considered the greatest Eagle of all time.
Wow.
So,
I said that with tears running down my eyes, running out of my eyes. So
yeah, exactly. So, but he was crying in his pillow when he said it.
I had to relocate my Saquon Barkley Giants mini helmet. I had to put it in the back.
What do you think about that statement? Do you think that there would be somebody that would be a little, being a lifelong Eagles fan growing up in that part of the country?
Oh, he's going to definitely rank up there in the top 10. I mean, what a season, over 2,000 yards. And then he didn't play that last game. He could have broke the record. But I really do, I'm also a Giants fan. I hope they can get things together and come on back, bring it up. But yeah, as long as the Eagles can make it to the Super Bowl, I'm happy, and I hope they can win it. And whether his legacy, Barkley's, is the all-time best, bring it on. Let's see a couple more years of him doing really well.
Well,
now let's double down here. Are you a Phillies fan as well?
Yes. But I'm a Dodgers fan too. I live out here.
Okay.
Southern California.
My uncle's a Dodgers fan. I'm thinking about sending him out there. So.
And now with the Dodgers recruits, I think they're going to look pretty darn good for some time.
Spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
I used to hear from my uncle how much money the Yankees used to spend. Now the shoe's on the other foot. He doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But David, listen again. Thanks for coming on with us. This is something Jimmy and I will definitely purchase. You know, we are New York Giant fans, but we also are history buffs. Again, the book is Emlen Tunnell, The Charismatic Life of a War Hero and NFL Legend, written by David Lyons, and like we talked about, the foreword written by Green Bay Packers legend Jerry Kramer. Coming out, it'll be out in April. David, stay in touch. Let us know about any book signings, especially if you make your way out to the East Coast. We love to support you.
I will.
We look forward to that. We'll definitely
Thanks
swing
so
by.
much for the opportunity, guys. Thanks for the opportunity.
It's a great story.
It is. Thank you.
All right, Jimmy, you can close it out, baby.
All right. Well, this episode was produced by Chop Sports Media, Dave Sturcio. Find us on all social media platforms: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Look out for David's book coming out in April. Where could we be able to purchase the book? Are you gonna? I know you have a website.
Amazon.
Okay,
On Amazon.
On Amazon
right now, it says hard copy, but I'm coming out with the paperback instead of the hard copy. So the hard copy is not available. So in April, it'll be available.
But once again, this is David Lyons, his book Emlen Tunnell. Look forward to it. And this is episode number 34. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care.